Coming up, it's the OnePlus 2. Acer's new all-in-one Cranky Hippo cranks up the bass, and I take a look at Dell's new hybrid Inspiron 13. You gotta watch before you buy.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Before You Buy is brought to you by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Before You Buy is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with free step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll ever need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to iFixit.com/twit and enter the code Before You Buy at checkout. And by FreshBooks, the super simple cloud accounting and invoicing solution designed to help small business owners save time billing and get paid faster. Try it free at freshbooks.com/BYB. Hello and welcome to Before You Buy. It's Twit's product review show where we take the latest gadgets and gizmos that we get here into the Brick House in Petaluma, and we hand them out to the staff, the engineers, the hosts of Twit TV to get the most honest reviews that we can possibly have for you, our loyal audience. Now, we've seen the OnePlus One. You've seen it even if you're not an Android user. You've heard about how it's sort of a flagship killer, at least it was. It was something that broke down the genres, a low-cost phone that operated with really good hardware and gave us something that we wanted, an experience broken away from the major manufacturers. Thankfully, we had Miriam Jawar, an insider who got to take a sneak peek at the OnePlus 2.
Hello and welcome to Before You Buy. I'm Miriam Jawar, and I'm here to talk to you today about the OnePlus 2. I got a chance to play with it on Monday in San Francisco, and it's a really, really wonderful phone. So I don't have one here. You can see my hands are bare, and that's just because, well, we got a chance to play with it for about 4 hours and didn't get a chance to take a review unit with us yet. But that's coming, and as soon as I do have one, I will be showing it to you. In the meantime, you can check out some of the photos and videos that I shot for Pocket Now and Mobile Geeks yesterday. So the OnePlus 2, hopefully you're familiar with the OnePlus One. It was launched by a company out of Taiwan last year, OnePlus, as kind of a flagship killer. And you know, it had pretty awesome specs, and the price point was really great, in the $300 range. And so this is a kind of a follow-up to this phone. It's not a revolution by any means. It's definitely an evolution built on the OnePlus One and called the OnePlus 2. So let me walk you through some of the specs and some of the key features of this phone. It's pretty awesome. They've managed to maintain the kind of flagship killer, and I put this in air quotes because, you know, it really isn't a flagship killer. It is in the sense that the price is really quite affordable and you get flagship-like features, but it's not quite there yet. So let's start with the display. It's still a 5.5-inch display, and it's still a 1080p display. And it's a bit of a surprise for a flagship. But the reason for that is cost, right? They didn't want to compromise on things like brightness and readability in daylight. They didn't want to compromise on color quality. So they chose a 1080p instead of a Quad HD display because it just made more sense for what they were doing. So it's an in-cell display. That means the touch surface is built into the glass, and it's not an extra layer. And it's IPS panel as far as I could tell. It is absolutely gorgeous. The display is definitely beautiful. What else is an evolution? The camera. The original OnePlus One had a 13 megapixel camera without optical image stabilization. And guess what? The OnePlus 2 adds OIS, which is an absolutely essential part of the camera experience today. So it's still 13 megapixel. It adds laser autofocus as well, just like the LG G4. And it's an f/2.0 aperture, so it's a very good for low light, theoretically. So the hardware elements are all in place for a really good camera experience on OnePlus 2. I got to play with the camera. There are some sample photos on Mobile Geeks. You can check it out. I'm not very excited yet about the camera because the software part, because a good camera is always part hardware and part software, the software part is not quite there yet. There's no manual controls yet. There is no RAW support, although the company says it's coming very soon. which means you have to rely on third-party cameras to really get the best out of that hardware. And frankly, right now there's really no third-party app that is good enough. Manual camera, an Android app that's really one of the better third-party cameras, is decent, but it doesn't let you do, for example, exposures past half a second. So I want to see G4 levels of software from OnePlus, and that is an area they need to improve. But the hardware this time supports potentially a great camera experience. Two other things that really I felt were pretty significant about this new phone is there's a fingerprint reader. And you're going to say, well, big deal. You know, the Galaxy S6 is a fingerprint reader. The iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus have fingerprint readers. And so this, just like on these other phones, is a, put your finger down. You don't have to swipe or anything. Just tap it, hold it. And here's the cool thing about it. What really impressed me is the Galaxy S6 for me is very inaccurate. Half the time I don't get a good read, and it's very frustrating to the point where I've now turned it off. On the iPhone, it's extremely reliable. However, it's a little time consuming. There's a bit of that delay, that little nag every time you put your finger on the sensor. There's none of this here. This is fast and accurate, and I was really impressed. This is the first fingerprint scanner I've used that I felt was really baked 100%. And it didn't matter what angle I used for my finger too, which was really, really impressive. The other thing that is kind of a new feature that we've never seen on any phones before is a slider on the side. So it's on this side of the phone, the left side if the display is facing you. And this slider lets you select the notification level in Android. And that's basically either no notifications, priority only, or all notifications. You're probably familiar if you use the Nexus. When you use the slider volume, you have these three options. But you actually have to tap the volume slider, rocker, and then pick one of these. No notifications, priority only, or all. This lets you do this right by feel on the side of the phone. It's really great. It's going to let us control how many notifications we get to our phones and how. And that's great. I want all Android phones to have that functionality. Other interesting little tidbits. It's now a metal frame around the phone with an interchangeable back cover. The original OnePlus One had a kind of a back that was changeable, but the back covered the sides of the phone a bit. And there was a bezel around the screen that was chrome fake metal. But on this new phone, the entire edge of the phone is very much like a Galaxy Note 4. It's all metal with the little embedded antenna plastic pieces machined in there. It's gorgeous, it's beautifully made, and there's still interchangeable covers. One of the things to keep in mind is even though you can pop the back cover, there is no removable battery, no micro SD card slot, but this year the OnePlus 2 is dual SIM. There's 2 nano SIMs on a little slider tray in the back of the phone that you can access. So that's the only thing you can access, 2 nano SIMs, no micro SD, no removable battery. Another little negative, since we're talking about the back cover, is that it doesn't have Qi wireless charging. There's not going to even be an optional cover for Qi wireless charging. And also, it doesn't seem to support fast charge, at least not officially. The last thing is, and this is a bone of contention, I need to verify this with some of my colleagues in the journalism world. Apparently, there's no NFC. I didn't even catch this because I didn't believe for a second that somebody would make a phone at the flagship level today without NFC. So the verdict is still out. Apparently, officially, it doesn't have it, but I did see 2 contacts in the back of the phone under the cover, and I'm wondering if these 2 contacts might support NFC. I know they're not for wireless charging, but so these are some of the things to keep in mind. The last thing I want to just mention, which is really cool, is that it has one of the first few new phones with USB Type-C as a connector. This is a connector that's very similar in size and shape to the Lightning connector that's used on iPhones. And you can plug it in either direction, and it's full USB. It's a new standard that's now used on the new MacBook, on the new Pixel Chromebook from Google, and on a few other devices like the Nokia N1 tablet. So this is going to be the future of connectors. Google has already said they want to do this on the next generation Nexus as well. So this was very interesting to see the first, one of the first phones I played with that functionality. Now, quickly, a few more specs before we wrap this up. You're probably wondering about processor and things like that. Since we're still talking about battery and other related things on the back of the phone, the battery is huge. It's 3,300 milliamp hours. This should last for really quite a long time. And so chips, Nothing really too spectacular. It is using Qualcomm's Snapdragon 810, which is the latest octa-core chipset from Qualcomm. This is a big little implementation, 4 large cores and 4 small cores. It has been a contentious chipset because on the HTC One M9, it gets very hot, and battery life is not always the best, especially when playing games and stuff. OnePlus One has clocked this chip at 1.8 gigahertz and has said that it worked closely with Qualcomm to optimize heat and battery life issues. So it's like a version 2.1 basically of this processor, and supposedly remedies some of the issues that we've encountered with this in the past. And finally, this is paired with 4 gigabytes. Yes, I said 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty incredible. Now, this wouldn't be complete if I didn't say pricing, right? I mean, the OnePlus One last year and now the OnePlus 2 are all about being quote-unquote flagship killers, and a lot of that comes down to not just the specs, but the features and the price. And so we've talked about the specs and features, but the price is really impressive. So this beautiful phone, as I described it, is $389, unlocked, dual SIM, with 64 gigs of built-in storage. Now remember, no micro SD card support here, but 64 gigs built in. And then this is going to be available August 11th by invitation only, typical of OnePlus. They start building them slowly so they don't have to stock too many parts, and eventually over time they send out more invites. So if you're lucky enough to get an invite on August 11th, you can buy the phone then. A few months or weeks later, we're not sure, later, there will be a $329 version with only 16 gigabytes of storage. And remember, no micro SD, so I'm not sure you want a phone like, you know, the base iPhone as well is like that. That's only 16 gigabytes of storage. You'll run out of that in no time. So that's in a nutshell what the OnePlus 2 is about. I honestly was pretty satisfied and impressed with this phone for the money. My only major gripes are basically the camera software. There's a lot of unknown there. The hardware is ready to go, but will the software live up to it? I don't feel like OnePlus lived up to that software-wise on the previous camera on the OnePlus One, so I really hope they can remedy this on the OnePlus 2. The second big thing for me that's a gripe is no wireless charging, and from what I hear, no NFC. If that is true, that is the most insane thing I have ever heard about its flagship phone. So let's find out. Quote unquote developing ... I'll let you know as soon as I hear more, and I will definitely tell you more when I get a review unit to play with. I'm scheduled to get one at some point soon. So that's my impression of my time with the OnePlus 2 this past Monday. And stay tuned for a review here on Before You Buy. Right now, tentatively, I would say this is going to be a buy. But, you know, until we give it the full Before You Buy treatment, we really can't steer you in the right direction 100%. So stay tuned for a review soon. And again, this is Miriam with Before You Buy, and this was our little overview of the OnePlus 2.
Thanks to Miriam Jawar for that first look at the OnePlus 2. I got to say, it's something that I expected. It's about the same price point that they had for the OnePlus One, and just like the OnePlus One, it's really going to shape up the market at about half the price of a premium handset from any of the major carriers, any of the major manufacturers. It's definitely something you need to take a look at. Now, if you were looking at a phone purchase, we're not saying that you hold off for the OnePlus 2, but if you want something that's a little bit different, something that gives you a bit more for a bit less, then hold off until Before You Buy gives you a complete review of the OnePlus 2. Now let's go ahead and switch gears. We played with an Android phone. Now we need to play with something else from Google that's not really Android. You've all seen all-in-ones before. That's right, the big screen. Normally it has some sort of touch sensor that allows you to use it as a monitor or an easel, basically a big tablet. It's an interesting device with definite uses in school, in education, in business, and drafting. Well, this one is running Chrome OS. We gave it to Mike Elgin, and this is what he thought.
Hey, thanks. It's Mike Elgin, the news director here at TWiT, and I'm talking today about the Acer Chromebase Touch. It's basically a Chromebook, but it's an all-in-one, and this one, as the name implies, has a touchscreen. It's really a great device, and it's cheap too. It's $429.99. I guess the company would say it's a good value. I say it's a very low price one way or the other, no matter how you say it. One of the great things about this is that it's fast booting. It has all the attributes of a Chromebook or a Chromium OS-based device. It's secure. Everything's in the cloud. You can download things to local storage. But let's start with the hardware on this device on the desktop. It's got an NVIDIA Tegra K1 quad-core processor, which is okay. Not bad, not great. 4 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage. Lots of people think that Chromebooks and Chromebases don't have a lot of internal storage. You can't store things locally. Yes, you can. And this one enables you to store 16 gigs of internal storage. It's pretty big, too. A 21.5-inch 1080p Full HD display. The display, as we'll get into the quality of the display in a minute, but it is HD, and it's a reasonably bright, reasonably good screen. It has 178-degree viewing angles, and so that's pretty good, especially as we'll get into, this thing tilts, and so you really are going to need that wide viewing angle. Regarding the touch display, it's a 10-point touch, so it can register 10 fingers at once, which you probably will never need. You probably never need more than 2 or 3. And it's got 2 3-watt audio speakers. The software, of course, is Chromium OS. That's Google's browser-based operating system. It's just like what you find on a Chromebook. Connectivity-wise, it's got HDMI out, not in, but just out. It's got 2 USB 2.0 connectors, and those are really for you to plug in the keyboard and mouse that come with it. The keyboard and mouse are, you know, low-end devices as you'd expect from an inexpensive desktop device like this. They're not the greatest mouse or keyboard that you'll ever find, but they're serviceable. They work just fine. And, of course, it supports both Bluetooth 4.0 and Wi-Fi. That's very important. And, of course, you can connect with Ethernet. Now, there isn't really a lot of competition in this space for a large-screen touch display. Acer pretty much has the market locked up here for the most part. And it's a good device. It's a good, solid device. And one of the things I want to point out is that it tilts very nicely. Now, there's a stand on the back. It's like a kickstand. It seems like it would slide down or slide up or something like that, but it doesn't. It's nice and solid, and you can easily slide this thing up all the way down to more of a drafting table type angle, or all the way up so that it's vertical for watching TV or something like that. It's very fast and flexible, and everything about this is fast except the actual compute performance. So when I say fast, I mean it boots up in less than 10 seconds. It shuts down right away. You can adjust it and tilt it right out of the box. In fact, you get a brand new one of these things, you're going to be up and running in less than a minute. You just plug everything in and log into Google, and you have all your stuff that you would have with a Google login right there. Let's go through some more of the pros. The multi-touch is a really nice feature in principle. I love the idea of a very large, it's like the size of 4 iPads, for example. That's how big this display feels. And that's a great idea. The problem is Chrome OS it's not a great interface for touch. It's a interface for a mouse and a keyboard, and it would be great if Google would come out with a really touch-friendly interface for this. That would make all the difference in the world with a device like this. And it's also nice to know that it supports the VESA mounting interface standard. So if you've got standard mounting brackets, those big booms that can come in, you can do anything that you could do with any other VESA-compliant device with this and mount it if you don't want to just set it on the table. Now, there are some cons to this. One of them, as I said, that is slow. Even with a very, very fast Ethernet connection, it's not going to be blistering fast. It's not going to be as fast as a standard laptop where things are mostly running off the hard disk, and even slow for, comparatively for cloud-based applications that are loading from the cloud. I mentioned the touch interface. That's a major problem. It's one of the reasons why you really aren't going to use the touch a lot unless you're using a specific cloud-based app that is designed to be used with touch. Just using the normal controls with touch is a little uncomfortable. Buy, try, or don't buy. This is definitely a buy. I'm a big fan of 2 aspects of this. The first is the Chromium OS cloud-based computing idea. It works. If you haven't done it, you're probably skeptical. If you have tried a Chromebook Pixel or some other Chromebook, then you know that it's a lot more workable than it sounds. And one of the things you discover if you've been using a conventional laptop is that almost everything is in the cloud anyway. So you might as well go all cloud and gain the security benefits of doing that. The second thing that I like about this whole idea is the fact that it's a large screen touch device. These are rare in low-cost devices like this. Again, this is very inexpensive. It's just $429.99. If you want the non-touch version, it's $329.99. But this touch version, I think, is really great. You know, of course, in the world of Windows, you can get a large screen touch device, but you're not going to get it anywhere near this price point. So that's a very, very compelling combination. And for a second device, a secure device, and the fact that it's cloud, you can just plug it in, leave it where it is, and work with a laptop at work, whatever, and then you can come home and all your stuff is right there. So I really like this. Good, solid design. It just feels very sturdy. The screen isn't ideal, but it's good enough, and I would give this a definite buy. So that's my review of the Acer Chromebook Touch, and again, highly recommend it if you want a large screen touch device that runs Chromium OS.
The Acer Chromebase is good enough for a buy from Mike Elgin. It may not be your primary computer, but if you want a second device, a secure device, something that maybe you can play with touch on, it's at the right price for you to test it out. We want to thank Mike Elgin for his review. Of course, you can find Mike every weekday, every morning for Tech News Today, all the news that you need to know about. Now, coming right up, we're going to take you out of the Brick House. We're taking a little trip down to San Francisco to Mobile Focus. We took a look at well, a unique camera system that you're definitely going to want to take a look at. But before we do that, I want to stop and just talk a little bit about a company, a sponsor of the show, that I have used quite a bit in the last 2 years, and that's iFixit. Now, you probably know that I do a show called Know How. Know How is all about doing it yourself, all about the makers, all about the tinkerers, all about the people who like to take stuff apart, make it better, and put it back together. Well, iFixit lets you do that. And it's not just for the tinkerers, it's for the people who want simple repairs. iFixit is a free online repair manual for everything. That's the best way to think of them. They have more than 10,000 repair guides for everything from electronics like your smartphone, your tablet, and game console to your home appliance, your clothing, and even your bike. They also have foolproof instructions. This is what makes them different. If you want to fix your stuff and you want a step-by-step repair guide, not only will iFixit give you the tools, but they'll give you the knowledge you need to be able to do it. Like, for example, do you want to repair the red ring of death on your Xbox? Do you want to swap the battery on your Galaxy S5? Well, iFixit has got you covered with parts, tools, and repair guides. They also make the most trusted repair tools for consumer electronics. It's what Brian Burnett, Cranky Hippo, and myself both use. The Pro Tech Toolkit, 70 tools to assist you with any mod, malfunction, or misfortune that comes your way. The toolkit is the gold standard for electronics work, from garage hackers to the CIA and the FBI. But more importantly, their unique tools are used by repair technicians everywhere. It starts with a 54-bit driver kit that includes Phillips bits, Pentalobe bits, Torx and Torx security bits, tri-wing bits, triangle bits. In other words, a bit to open pretty much everything. They've also got these spudgers that let you open up devices the right way. Rather than marring the surface, use the right nylon or metal spudger to get it open, keep it open, and then close it so that no one ever knows that you were in there. They include tools like an ESD safe precision tweezer set, an anti-static wrist wrap, and it's lightweight, compact, and it's durable. It all folds up into a roll so that you can take it with you. For example, I'm going to be taking one of these with me to DEF CON. It's only $64.95 and it's backed by a lifetime warranty. Hobbyists and home DIY fixers alike swear by the ProTech Toolkit. You should too. Now, best of all, once you get their kits, there are thousands of free iFixit guides to help you put your tools to use. Now, with iFixit, you can fix it, and iFixit will help. Visit iFixit.com/twit for more than 10,000 free step-by-step guides. iFixit also sells every part and tool that you'll ever need. Enter the code before you buy at checkout, and you'll save $10 off any purchase of $50 or more. That's iFixit.com/twit. iFixit.com/twit. And use the code before you buy to save $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. And we thank iFixit for their support of Before You Buy. Well, folks, we're back here, and we're going to take a little trip across the Golden Gate Bridge to take a look at a camera system unlike any that you've seen, because this camera system knows what you look like.
Father Robert Ballas here, the digital Jesuit here at Mobile Focus 2015.
for a first look. Now, I know a lot of you have network cameras, everything from those cheapies that you get from your ISP to maybe a drop cam where you've got a network video recorder. But I'm taking a chat with Kelsey Verdier over here at ArcSoft, who's going to explain why the Simplicam is what you want. Kelsey, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Now, this looks like a standard camera with a network interface. You're actually displaying a phone here, but the Simplicam is so much more. Tell me why.
Simplicam is the only home Wi-Fi monitoring camera on the market that has face recognition. No one else has this available to consumers. So what you can actually do is register up to 10 people, and it uses ArcSoft's proprietary algorithm, analyzes it in the Closely Cloud, and then you can use that to customize who you get notifications for, and also who has video recorded of them. So you can say, you know what, I'm going to register my family members, automatically delete all video of them from the cloud. I don't want them to be recorded. Or I only want notifications if my 15-year-old daughter comes home, because I want to know if she's coming home from school on time at the end of the day. We also have two-way talk and night vision, so a lot of pet owners use it to keep an eye on their dog at home. And our detection zones mean that you can set the camera to ignore a certain area, like a tree blowing outside of your window, and it cuts down on needless notifications for things you don't actually care about.
That's actually huge, because one of my biggest complaints with a lot of network camera systems is the notifications sound great until you get 50 of them in an hour because a shadow went across the lens or because there's regular traffic. I can use either recognition or reverse recognition, where it tells me if there's someone who I know, or it tells me if there's someone I don't know. That I think is a game changer. Now, talk to me about pricing. I know the hardware is going to cost something, and then there's probably going to be a service on top of it. What's that going to run me?
Simplicam is just the hardware is $149.99 on Simplicam.com. And what you get with that is the two-way talk, the night vision. You can view your live stream at any time from the Closely app on your phone, which is free. And then you get sound notifications and motion notifications. Our recording plans start at $4.99 a month. And with that, you get to view the last 24 hours of your recorded video, and you also get the face recognition analysis. So it's pretty much like a latte per month to get to have the extra security of knowing who's in your home.
Kelsey, thank you very much for speaking with us. Now, if they want to find out more about Simplicam, where do they go?
www.simplicam.com.
I'm Father Robert Balliser. Simplicam sees you, and that is your first look. I really like the Simplicam. I'm not so big on people always measuring cost in terms of latte. I'm not sure when latte became the new economic credit, but it is cool tech. The ability to set it so that it either warns you when you've got friends coming to the door, or to say, I don't recognize these people and you should take a look. That's interesting. That turns a big data point into a more refined data point, and we're definitely going to want to get them onto Before You Buy for an official, formal review. Now, we're going to switch gears a little bit here. We've been looking at Android phones. We've been looking at Chrome OS, big old tablets / desktops, and now we've taken a look at a smart camera. But for those people who just want to hear the bass, we've got Brian Burnett, the cranky hippo, taking a look at the Zvox SoundBase 450.
This is Brian Burnett, here to talk to you about the Zvox SoundBase 450. The Zvox comes in at $299.99, and what this is a base that you would put underneath your TV. The range would be between 32 inches to 55 inches, but this would sit under your TV, you plug it in. It doesn't take up very much space, so it comes in at 2.5 feet long by 2 feet wide. And it's only about 3.5 inches high. So pretty small profile, and the styling is basically the monolith from 2001 Space Odyssey, which isn't a bad thing considering you want this to be kind of a subtle piece, furniture piece that just provides sound and not a distraction. Now the Zvox does have a 50-watt amp, and it weighs about 16 pounds, and there's a driver on each side of it, with 3 in the middle and a internal sub that fits underneath. So it's a very compact package. On the back of the Zvox, you get your standard digital inputs along with some analog inputs, the power button. So pretty basic amount of inputs that you get here. Some of the features that you get with this also is built-in Bluetooth, which is very easy to connect to. You just set the Zvox to the Bluetooth input, and then you are able to detect it using your phone. One of the other features is virtual surround sound. Now, as this is just a complete set unit and it doesn't actually have speakers that detach from it, what the Zvox does is virtually controls the sound to make it feel like it is surround sound, and it does a good job of that. And there's 3 different settings that you can use: SD1, SD2, and SD3. And as you can guess, up to SD3 is the most surround sound, which is good for movies, and SD2 is more of like TV shows, and SD1 is if you just don't want surround sound at all. There's a little digital display hiding behind the black grate, and then underneath is the buttons for turning on the Zvox volume and input. They're a little hard to reach when you have them set on a desk because they're at the bottom, but it's not that difficult to reach them. When you first open the box, you get all the cables that you'll need to use the Zvox. Also, really good instructions with pictures so that you can set up this SoundBase fairly easily. Some of the nicer points for the SoundBase is that it is really easy to set up. It's not very complicated, and you could probably get this going in about 5 minutes depending on how you want to route your cables. Also included in the package is a remote, but there are options to sync your remote to the Zvox. After a few minutes of arranging on my desk, I was able to fit the Zvox underneath my monitors and use it as my PC sound setup for about a week. In that time, I really enjoyed the sound. It got very loud enough to fill the basement with sound, and it was loud enough that I had to wait until the studio was empty to use it because it would bleed into the studio from the basement. And to test the sound, I used Kung Fury, one of my favorite movies of the year, and best soundtracks, I think.
Well then, it's hacking time.
A couple of my favorite features included in the Zvox is commercial control feature, which it will increase or decrease the volume depending on what the level of audio is going into it. So if you've ever had that annoying situation where you're watching something with quiet voices and then a commercial comes on and the commercial is super loud, the output leveling will prevent large changes in the volume and will boost quiet dialogue while lowering the output for something loud like a commercial. Another included feature is AccuVoice, where it will override the current surround setting and it will help the voices come out more clear, and it worked really well. If you're a fan of True Detective and you've tried to listen to Matthew McConaughey say something, you might enjoy the clear voices feature. So when it comes down to pros and cons, the first pro is the sound itself. There's really clear audio. The bass is decent for the size of the SoundBase, and the extra features with the voice and the output leveling really make this a great package for someone who's just looking at in an all-in-one solution. Also, it's very compact with all the speakers being contained and the sub being underneath. And the features, that's the last pro. All those, the virtual surround sound and those other features I mentioned before, really make this a nice setup for someone who wants to put this in their living room or maybe a bedroom, something like that. The cons that I came up with are there's a limited number of inputs, so if you wanted to use HDMI or you wanted to use a standard 3.5 millimeter audio jack, there are no options for that. And the second con would be the buttons are placed underneath kind of the lower lip of the Zvox. So if you have this kind of pushed back on a mantle or on a TV stand, it can sometimes be hard to reach the buttons, but if you've programmed the Zvox with your remote or you use the included remote for the Zvox, it's not going to really be too much of an issue. So do I give the Zvox SoundBase 450 a buy, try, or don't buy? I'm going to have to give it a buy, considering how well how loud it gets and how good the sound is for the price of $299. If you're looking for an all-in-one sound system that won't take up a lot of space and good enough sound to fill a large room, then this could be a good choice for you. This has been Brian Burnett. Thanks for watching.
And that's a buy for the Zvox SoundBase 450 from Brian Cranky Hippo Burnett. I gotta say, you know, we get a lot of speakers here in the Twit Brick House, and a lot of them are not great, but this one did sound pretty good. Brian, you've had this down in the no-hole for a while, yeah?
Yeah, I used it as my primary speaker for my PC for the last week or so, and the thing that really impressed me was some of the features that they had, and it was just really easy to use. And I mean, when you get something like that, you just want it to work and play with it right away.
Right. It's a step above just gaming speakers. This is something that actually does sound good. So if you got $350 or so burning a hole in your pocket, and if you are looking for better than cheap speakers, but maybe not quite as good as those $10,000 speakers we reviewed a while back, you got to take a look at Zvox. Now, when we come back, we're going to take a look at this. This is a Dell Inspiron 13 that I've been playing with for a while, the 7000 series. That's right, it's a convertible. I'm going to tell you all about it and whether or not you should be considering one of these for, say, your back-to-school purchase. But before we do that, let's go ahead and thank the second sponsor of this episode of Before You Buy, and it's FreshBooks. Now, what is FreshBooks? Quite simply, FreshBooks is something that every small business owner should be using. If you're not using FreshBooks, you're working too hard on your finances. Now, FreshBooks is an accounting solution, but more than that, it's like having another person in the office who takes care of all those things that you don't want to play with. Invoicing, billing, contacting clients when they're late with payments. Now, that was something that either you had to do yourself or you had to hire someone to be in the office, and it was typically a very unpleasant part of business. In fact, I remember having to do that when I was running my own business, and I probably missed out on a few $1,000s worth of invoicing just because I filed too late, or I forgot to follow up, or it just slipped through the cracks and I never actually charged clients. That was a horrible way to do business. And you never have to do it that way because you've got FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the invoicing solution that will make it easy for freelancers to create and send your invoices, track the time, and manage the expense. Now, during that free trial that they're going to give you for 30 days, you'll immediately understand why over 5 million people use FreshBooks to keep their small businesses running smoothly. It's incredibly easy to use. If you can run an Excel spreadsheet, which unfortunately a lot of us were keeping track of our finances in an Excel spreadsheet, then FreshBooks is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. FreshBooks was designed especially for people who prefer to focus on the work and not on the paperwork. Now, here's a big part. Help at FreshBooks is free, forever. And you can always count on their award-winning support rock stars to go above and beyond whenever you need a hand. They understand that you're not accountants. They understand that this is not what you do. You do business. You make things. You make products. You make services. And the finance part, well, leave to them to take care of it so that you can focus on what you're best on. We want you to try FreshBooks. Getting started is simple and it's totally free for 30 days with no obligation. Go to freshbooks.com/BYB, freshbooks.com/BYB. And don't forget to enter Before You Buy in the How Did You Hear About Us section to throw us some love. Start your 30-day free trial today. And we thank FreshBooks for their support of Before You Buy. Hybrids and convertibles have been all the rage. I mean, this is what you want to look at now. You want to look at a nice Ultrabook, something with a lot of power that's really light, that has good styling, and yet has the ability to convert between a laptop and a tablet and maybe something in between, which is why I spent the last 3 weeks taking an in-depth look at the Dell Inspiron 7000 Series 13 7352.
It's a laptop. No, it's a tablet. Nope, it's both. It's the Dell Inspiron 13 7352 7000 Series 2-in-1 Special Edition. A convertible hybrid that combines a touchscreen, a dual hinge, and a powerful Ultrabook in a no-nonsense package for just over $1,000. Measuring 13 inches by 8.75 inches by 0.75 inches thick and weighing 3.75 pounds, the Inspiron 13 is slightly heavier than the sub-3-pound Ultrabooks like the Lenovo Carbon or the Acer S7, but it's also thinner and lighter than other hybrids like the Acer R14. The Inspiron 13 has a 13.3-inch 1920 by 1080 LED backlit IPS screen that does tend to be a bit blue without calibration, but makes up for it with a 750:1 contrast ratio and IPS viewing angles. The screen has a 10-point multi-touch sensor overlay that will support a synaptic stylus, and is mounted on two heavy-duty hinges that allow the screen to fold back when you need a tablet. Under the hood is a 5th Gen 3 GHz Intel i7-5500U CPU, supported by 8 GB of DDR3L memory. Graphics power is provided by the integrated Intel chipset, and primary storage for our unit came in the form of a 256 GB upgradable 2.5-inch SATA Revision 3 SSD. Networking comes from an 802.11ac and Bluetooth 4.0 combo card, sporting both 2.5 and 5 GHz radios. Everything is powered by a 3-cell 43 watt-hour lithium-ion battery. The design of the Inspiron 13 is industrial with a bit of flair. An aluminum palm rest keyboard chassis dominates the clamshell design with a combo audio port, 2 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI port, power, and a security slot adorning the left side of the hybrid, and a media card reader, USB 2.0 port, and buttons for volume and power on the right. The screen has a rubberized matte finish, as does the base of the clamshell, which makes it easy to grip, but also makes it a fingerprint magnet. Performance-wise, the Inspiron 13 runs in the middle of the Ultrabook class in the $1,000 price range. In PC Mark 8, it scored 2414, which places it with the Acer R14 and the Lenovo ThinkPad Yoga, but well below the 2820 average by the HP Spectre X360. Battery life is disappointing. While Dell claimed 9 hours of runtime, the best we could muster was 8 hours, with Wi-Fi off and the screen at 50% brightness. In regular use, it was closer to 6 hours before I needed a glass of electron juice. Of course, not everything is specs, and this is where the Inspiron 13 really shines. With the aluminum body, the hybrid feels absolutely solid. The backlit keys are well-sized, have great travel, and very little flex. The touchpad is responsive and precise. The hinge allows for laptop, tablet, tent, and stand mode without wobble, though Dell should have added magnetic retention to the back of the screen to hold it in place when in tablet mode, as it tends not to want to stay flush. It may not be the fastest Ultrabook, the least expensive convertible, or the lightest hybrid we've had in the lab, but the Inspiron 13 is a solid machine with strong reasons to like it as a daily driver. The Dell Inspiron 13 Model 7352 is available now. You can buy it online for about $1,050.
Let me be clear. The 13 is a perfectly good convertible notebook/tablet. It's got a nice screen. It looks good. It's nice color saturation. It's not too heavy, but it's also very sturdy. Unlike a lot of lighter notebooks, it doesn't feel like it's going to flex. And I really like this keyboard. In fact, this is probably one of the best Ultrabook keyboards I've used. Even better than, say, the MacBook Air. It's got good travel, and it just feels firm. So it's a well-assembled notebook, but the problem is that where it's priced makes it problematic. It's not as full-featured as, say, the HP X360 Spectre or, say, the Acer R15 or R14, but it's also less expensive. But it's close. The price is really close, and it makes me wonder if most people wouldn't rather just pay maybe $100, maybe $200 extra dollars and get one of those rather than settle for this. Now, there are going to be some people who really like it, and let me give you the pros and cons. On the pros, I like the hybrid design. It's a good design, aside from the fact that the screen doesn't like to stay flush on the back. I think that may actually just work itself out once the hinge gets a little bit of work underneath it. On the con side, it's a poor battery. It really doesn't have the legs that I'd like it to have, unless you're turning off the Wi-Fi and running the screen at half brightness, which nobody's going to do. Also, well, again, comparatively, it's a great notebook, but is it great enough to justify not paying a tiny bit more to get a much more capable one? And unfortunately for me, that means it's going to be a don't buy. Now, there are going to be people out there who are going to be on a strict budget, and they only have about $1,000 to spend. And if that's the case, and you really want a hybrid, then this is something you're going to want to look for. But if at all you can save up, if at all you can perhaps wait a tiny bit for the prices to drop, then unfortunately the Dell Inspiron 13 7352 for me is going to have to be a pass. Now, we want to thank everyone, all of our reviewers who made this episode of Before You Buy possible. Of course, that includes Mike Elgin, Miriam Jawar, Cranky Hippo, that's right, Brian Burnett. And we also want to thank the people who make the show itself possible. That includes Lisa and Leo, Carson, my super producer, and of course, Brian Burnett, my technical director. Brian, could you tell the folks where they could find you every week on the TWiT TV network?
Well, they can find me on Thursdays doing Know How with you. And then actually next week, we're going to DEF CON. So if you want to keep up with that, you could follow me on Twitter at cranky_hippo. And If you see any weird tweets, it's probably because I got hacked.
We're most definitely going to get hacked. And also, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/PadreSJ. Don't forget that we do this show live most weeks. Next week, we won't be live because of DEF CON Black Hat, but you can find us at 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. That's right, we fixed it so that we're not always getting pushed later and later and later. Live.twit.tv. You can watch us as we make the show, which means you get to see the pre-show, the post-show, and everything in between. If you download it, you just get the finished package, but if you watch live, you get to see all the little stumbles and all the little things that we do that we enjoy, and we think it's part of the Twit TV experience. And as long as you're watching live, go ahead and jump into the chat room at irc.twit.tv, and you can talk to me during the show. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballester, and remember, you gotta watch before you buy.